Hello, hello, hello out there in Keto Bikini Land. KBB Tribe. Welcome to Monday Masterclass. Zoom won't let me. Great, let me just fix the lighting real quick. That is a little bit better. All right. Here we go. I think this time I successfully got us live on Facebook. Before we started, yay, yes, it is there. So folks watching the replay won't have to fast forward so far. All right, let me make sure I get the comments sections up. Open the chat. We get to dive into like the topic of the century that everybody wants to talk about all the time. So I'm excited. Hello, hello. Oh, we have a great little group here today. I love it. All right. Here. As per usual, if any questions come up or you just want to chit chat amongst yourselves in the chat inside the Zoom or in the chat in the Facebook group where we are also streaming live, feel free to chat as much as you would like. You can do a little sidebar convos, ask me to answer questions or whatever you are good with. Hey, Shayna, I see you there. Saw you trying to get in on the Zoom. Oh, looks like you're there. Yep. Yay. Awesome. No worries, CJ. We never require you to have your camera on, so don't worry. Come as you are, camera on, camera off. Participate however you would like. All right. Before we dive in tonight, I happen to be wearing a Keto Bikini Body t-shirt from my shop. I've shared once or twice in the group that I do have an apparel shop in Spreadshirt, I think is what it's called. Anyways, it is really easy to do because I'm not carrying inventory. So anytime you're interested in a type of apparel, I have bags and hats and all kinds of things. Let me know and I can always add things in there. But right now it's only the logo and the brand, but I want to do some fun stuff. And so my first design is ready. I just did it the other day. So now I've just got to add it to the shop. But Booty by Bacon will be available very soon. I'm planning to do a whole line of Booty by Bacon, Body by Bacon, Body by Beef, Booty by Beef, all kinds of fun stuff like that. So any kitschy fun ideas you come up with, let me know. I will create a design and I'll add it to the shop. I definitely want it to be a lot more than just the logo. So we can have some fun stuff to play with there. I'm always open to ideas. Okay, enough about that. Let's get into this body recomp. Bacon is what keeps me going. I love it. I should probably do one called Carnivore Plus Coffee, because I know a lot of us are coffee lovers and we'll do all meat, but we ain't giving up our coffee. Anti-vegan. Okie dokie. So most of you here, maybe all of you here, know what body recomp is. That's how you have found me. That's why you're in this group, because that's what we do here. Build muscle, burn body fat. The whole concept of toning up and leaning down is exactly that. I think it's a big misconception out there, has been for decades, about what women need to do to quote unquote tone up or to get toned. Was always thought that you have to do like these 2-pound weights and these Zumba classes and Pilates, and you should never lift heavy and you don't want to get bulky, and all of these things out there that have been steering us wrong for way too many years. So all we ever really mean when we say we want to tone up or we want to get toned, or I don't want to get big, I just want to get toned, is the same thing. Building muscle, burning body fat, that's all we're talking about. And so there is another big misconception out in the fitness industry, and has been for decades as well, that you cannot do these two things at once. And that is the myth that I am here to bust tonight. We can do them both at the same time. However, there are some caveats. So I will be going into the caveats, the things to think about, the things that are going to make it easier or more difficult to recomp your body at the same time, burn body fat while building muscle. And we'll get into all the nitty-gritty of how. And then there were some specific questions that were asked that I'm also going to address that are either directly connected to this topic or loosely connected to this topic. So I will go through those questions as well. But let me break down one more myth, or bust one more myth. And it's that there is no such thing. Actually, I will bust two. One is kind of a terminology I don't like, but the other is a concept we hear all the time of turning fat into muscle. You cannot turn fat into muscle. Muscle is not created out of fat. So we cannot turn our body fat into muscle. When people say that, what they really mean is body recomp. They are losing fat from their fat stores while at the same time they're building muscle. So it looks like the fat is turning into muscle, but the fat does not actually physiologically, biologically turn into muscle. That does not happen. We liberate the fat from the fat stores and eliminate it. And curious if anybody here knows how the fat is actually eliminated out of your body. What are the pathways? Where does the fat go when you burn the fat? Curious. Not that important to know. It doesn't really matter, but if you're into the science, Deb knows. Breathing. Breathing is the number one way, number one way. Oxidation. So when you think about oxidation, it's oxidized, right? We think about oxygen. So you kind of think about it like that. It's a simple way to think about it. So yes, breathing. Unfortunately, we can't breathe the fat away. Breathing more is not going to make the fat go away any faster. That's just happens to be the pathway, one of the main pathways where it goes. We can also excrete some in our feces. We can excrete some through sweat, but it's not like a lot of people, another myth that's out there. You see people like running in trash bags and big baggy sweatshirts, and sweating more does not mean you're going to lose more fat. Just like breathing more does not mean we're going to lose more fat. It just happens to be that those are the detox pathways. And so the fatty acids, as they're being broken down and leaving our body, they leave through those pathways. But that doesn't mean that that's the mechanism by which we actually lose it. So I think that's a big kind of misconception out there. So just to break that down kind of quickly. Okay. And then the other term that if you hear this, I think it's really just a slip of the tongue, because the people that I hear saying it are people who know what they're talking about, but they say this so frequently. I hear this so frequently: lean muscle. I want to build lean muscle. Okay, all muscle is lean. There's no such thing as lean muscle and fat muscle. Muscle is lean. Muscle is lean tissue. So when people say lean muscle, what they really mean is lean tissue or muscle. You can say muscle and it already implies lean. I think a lot of the time they just say that because they know, like all of us do, that women are highly concerned about getting bulky. So they don't want to say build muscle because then women think bulk. But ladies, if you take nothing else away from this masterclass, please know this: the muscle is not what makes you bulky, it's the fat that makes you bulky. So if you start lifting weights and you feel bulky and you think you look bulky because of the lifting, it is because you haven't lost the body fat yet. Muscle, here's another myth. We have to write this in the show notes that these are all myths that we're busting today. The other myth I hear all the time, or slip of the tongue, so to speak, is muscle weighs more than fat. No, it doesn't. Muscle does not weigh more than fat. In weight, 1 pound of muscle is the same as 1 pound of fat. 1 pound is 1 pound. Whether it's chicken, beef, steak, whatever you want to call it, human flesh, a pound is a pound. So the weight is not different. But that what people mean when they say that is muscle is denser than fat. So the same surface area of fat is a larger chunk of surface area than the muscle. Shana's like, yeah, it makes her nuts when people say that. Yep. Yeah, they always say it weighs more. It doesn't weigh more, but it takes up less space. And this is why, and we say, oh, if I put on a pound of muscle, then I feel bulky. It's no, and we'll talk about that tonight, about the rate of fat loss and the rate of muscle gain. But the rate of muscle gain is much slower than the rate of of fat loss. So if you are feeling bulky after you start lifting, it's probably one of two things. Number one, you just have a lot of fat still on your body and you're not losing body fat. And so you're lifting and you just feel bigger. And that's likely coupled with the fact that when you first start strenuous training of any kind, you are going to be a little inflamed, because training, strength training, weight training, resistance training, it's all the same thing, is going to create a breakdown that then needs to be repaired. And it's the repair of that muscle breakdown that actually creates muscle growth. So in the breakdown, you're beating your body up in the gym, you're creating these micro tears, you're creating injuries, small injuries to your body that then need to be repaired. So what happens is inflammation ramps up, which is your body's immune response to heal. Anytime anything, you get a scrape, a cut, a burn, anything, any assault to your body's ramping up the inflammation to heal, so that it can then anti-inflame and heal. So that initial inflammation is going to create water weight. That's what inflammation does. This is why we're all on a low carb diet, because we understand that it's less inflammatory, and we're trying to do all the things we can to decrease the inflammation in our body. But these are also the things, like all of these hormetic stressors we hear about, like fasting. Training is a hormetic stressor. These are stressors. They're creating little injuries in the body that our body has to respond to. When we're doing it in a safe, strategic way, and we're not overdoing it, that's a good thing for our body. But what we don't want is chronic. And we'll get into that in a little bit as it relates to body recomp and some of the things that can get in the way of getting the results that you want. So there's the groundwork. If you think you're getting bulky, focus a little more on the fat loss. Make sure you're tracking. We're going to talk about tracking. I did a whole masterclass recently on tracking, but we're going to talk about what you need to track for to see the body recomp happening, because sometimes it's harder to see than purely fat loss or purely muscle gain. And you may just need to focus more on the fat loss if you're feeling that bulk, or you just have to be comfortable with being a little uncomfortable at the beginning. Okay, now let's get into the nitty-gritty of recomp. So, quick definition for those who don't know: body recomposition refers to changing the composition of your body. So not just losing weight, but losing body fat and putting on muscle, so that your body fat percentage changes. Now you're shifting the balance so that you have more muscle than body fat on your body. And this is what changes the shape of your body and not just the size. This is what creates the body of your dreams, rather than a smaller version of the same out of shape body. So this is what transforms skinny fat into fit. This is what transforms overweight, flabby to fit. This is what creates the curves in the right places, as we all want. Okay, so short answer is body recomp possible. Absolutely. And You can do it one at a time. You can do bulks and cuts. You can focus on muscle building for a period of time and then focus on fat loss for a period of time. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And I would highly encourage those who are already at their, let's say, quote unquote, goal weight or maintenance, or you're living in a healthy, sustainable place in terms of your body composition where it is now. It's a great idea to do a building season and a cutting season. This is what athletes do, right? I live at a pretty ideal body fat percentage. So I have to have a season where I'm doing nothing but building. And then I take a season where I'm doing nothing but cutting. And it sounds very different, cut and dry, but I'm always with an eye to recomp. So I'm never doing anything too drastically in one direction or another, which you'll hear come back up later in the masterclass. But can you do it all at one time? Absolutely. However, there are some caveats. So let's get into the caveats and then we'll talk about the how-tos. So things that are going to make body recomposition more difficult or easier. The people who are going to have the easiest time with body recomp are if you are overweight, over fat, under muscled, and untrained. So you're an untrained individual, meaning you are just starting strength training. And for those of you who may have worked out for years, maybe you worked out, so maybe you're not untrained in terms of like not being fit, not having any level of fitness or not exercising, but you haven't primarily focused on strength training, resistance training. So this could be weights, bands, body weight, but anything that's creating resistance. So you haven't been training specifically for muscle building. If you're new to that and you have a good bit of body fat to lose, I would say any of my ladies over 30% body fat are in this camp. And you haven't been chronically dieting. And that's going to probably, everybody who was like, woohoo, that's me, was probably like, oh shoot, but I have been chronically dieting, right? Because most of us have been battling this yo-yo diet for most of our lives. So let's talk about each of the caveats that make it more difficult, and then we'll get into the how. So number one, if you are too lean already. So for my skinny fat ladies, you are still in a camp that if you're untrained and you're under muscled and you're over fat, but you're not overweight, right? These are my skinny fat ladies. You look small. With your clothes on, you wouldn't notice, but you notice the flab because you're not actually fit. You don't have that muscle under there. If you get a body composition test, you're going to find and probably be surprised that your body fat is high. And it is not a function of being necessarily overweight, but it's a function of being under-muscled. So you too, if you're untrained, are in the camp where it could be very easy to do some body recomp. So anybody who has a high percentage of body fat, 30, 35 plus, you're in the camp where if you're untrained, it's going to be the easiest for you to body recomp. You can go on a cut to lose body fat, start strength training, and see the fastest results when it comes to body recomp than any other groups. So this is where I say your body fat is a blessing. So let's do the reframe there and say, hey, if I'm in that camp, woohoo, I get to celebrate that and say, I get the fastest results. Now, so if you're too lean, if your body fat percentage is already low and you're lean, you're a small lean individual, body recomposition is going to be almost impossible. For that camp of people, especially if you're trained, if you have been training for 2 years or more, and you're already lean. And when I say already lean, this can be anywhere from, a lot of women don't know how to properly think about body fat percentage. I like to say 25% body fat is a healthy, normal maintenance range. And anybody above that 25% is always my goal. That's my goal for you to get to for life. If you get to that goal and you're like, I'm still not in the body I want to be in, that's when we either need to look at body dysmorphia, or, okay, maybe you have a more advanced goal and now you want to get to athletically lean levels. And that is likely going to take some of these cycles, the building, the bulking, if you will, and the cutting, because that is going to be a lot more difficult and a lot more time consuming to do in a recomp once you're already there. 25 though is kind of that cutoff. 26, 27, 28%, you still have a greater opportunity to do some recomp. If you are under 25%, if we're talking 24, 23, 22%, this is where I would really say we're going to need some cycling and not just a recomp phase. Unless you are comfortable, and this is what, when I get my ladies to this point and they still want to cut and they still want to cut, this is where I usually try to convince them 24, 25% body fat is beautiful. Stay there. Start getting really comfortable with your body here. And let's go through at least 6 months of a maintenance phase where you're focused on building muscle, and you may get a little bit, a percentage or two shift with your body fat without needing to do a cut. And then when you get into a really healthy metabolic place where you can eat a lot of calories and you're not putting on body fat, then we can talk about doing a cut to get to those lower 20%. 20, 21, 22% is very, very lean. So I hope that kind of puts the body fat percentage in perspective. Okay, so my super lean folks, going to be very difficult to recomp. The other side of the coin, if you think you're too fat, you have too much weight to lose, so you want to wait to start lifting. You don't want to do the strength training yet because you're like, I'm too big. Let me get some of this weight off first. Most of you who found me here in Keto Bikini Secrets, you have already figured out that, hey, I need to not wait any longer. Some of you have already waited, and now you're diving into the strength training, and I applaud you for that, because you've gotten some of that weight off. You feel a little more comfortable. But if you're still one of those, it's like, I think I should just try to get another 20 pounds off before I start lifting. Hopefully this class can change your mind on that, and you can decide to start lifting now. Because if you wait, it's going to be more difficult later on. So my soapbox is, even if you have 100 pounds to lose, start lifting now. It's going to be better for you if you start lifting now. It'll actually be a lot easier to lose the body fat if you start lifting now. Okay. Number 3, advanced training age. This means you are a trained individual. You have been consistently training for muscle building, meaning strength, resistance training, weight training, consistently for at least 2 years or more. Now your rate of muscle gain is going to be slower. I'm in this camp, bodybuilding for 8 years, putting on even 1 pound of muscle on my body now can take months or even a year or more. So and we always think kind of like the big bodybuilders, well, they just put on muscle so fast. Maybe if they're taking steroids, maybe if they're taking performance enhancing drugs, they can increase that rate. But the more advanced lifters and the bigger bodybuilders, it's harder for them to put on even the smallest amount. So pro bodybuilders at any level are going for like a 0.1, 0.2% improvement every year. So the longer you've been training consistently and properly, now those terms matter, the slower it's going to be for you to build muscle. But the good news about that is, even my ladies who've been training consistently, I find that there's a lot of people who are training incorrectly for muscle building. So we'll get into a little bit of the training in a bit about what you really need to be doing in a I'm going to do a lot more, and I've already done some master classes specifically about how you should be training. But it's got to be progressive and it's got to be challenging. Okay, so advanced training age. And then finally, and I want to say that there was another one. Oh yeah, let's actually get into this first. Chronic yo-yo dieters. My chronic dieters, my yo-yo dieters. You're either on a diet or you're off a diet. You're losing 20 pounds and then you stop tracking, you go off track, you put on the 20 pounds, maybe then some again, and now you're having to get it off again. And you're doing that over and over and over and over again. Every time you do that, it's going to be harder to lose the body fat the next time. So another takeaway that if you take nothing else from this class, the most important thing that you can do for yourself is to be consistent with something. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. We've got to let go of this I'm either on or off. I'm either perfect or I'm off the rails. We've got to stop that, if nothing else. Every time you do that, I want you to think that you are digging the ditch deeper and deeper and deeper. So for my ladies who start with me with private coaching and they're binging at all, even if it's like once every couple months, I always say the first goal is to not binge. I don't care what you do. I don't care how far off your macros are from where they should be, or what you're tracking or not tracking or anything. The most important thing you can do is not binge and not restrict. So for my ladies out there who are fasting and then binging, cut that crap out yesterday. And today is the second best day to yesterday. So consistency is going to matter more than anything else. Imperfect action, imperfect consistency is better than perfection and then totally going in the opposite direction. All right. So yes, yo-yo dieting is going to be another thing that makes it very difficult. And then finally, unrealistic expectations coupled with lack of patience. Trying to do either end of the spectrum, build muscle or burn body fat faster. Wanting to get results in one direction or the other faster, so you go to an extreme too drastically in one direction or the other. That is what is going to stop your progress. So I've seen this with clients and with many people out there who are not working with me. And it is this concept of, oh, I'm going to do this build. I'm going to focus on building. Oh, I don't like how uncomfortable I feel here. So now I'm going to do a little cut. I'm going to do a mini cut. We hear that all the time. I'm going to do a mini cut, but you haven't been in your build for more than a month or two. That's just another way of saying you're yo-yo dieting. So this is another reason why for the majority of people, I don't love the bulking and cutting concept. And even the way I do it now is not a bulk and a cut. It is gaintaining, as I like to call it, maintenance with a focus on building, so gaining while maintaining, or a slight deficit. And so that's essentially what we're getting into here for Recomp. And the question always is, how long does it take to Recomp? And the answer to that is, how long is a piece of string? But the real goal with Recomp should be for the rest of your life. Because if you're at a healthy place, that let's say I said that 24 to 26% body fat, you can slowly create this Recomp over time. It's not going to be very noticeable. So I think what a lot of people are thinking of when they think Recomp is like extreme body transformation, right? These challenges and these things we see out there that make it happen in 12 weeks or less, right? I can promise you that what's happening in these transformations is fat loss. it's not truly body recomp. When you see people, and you see this a lot of the time in the fitness industry and competitors, bodybuilding competitors and bikini competitors, this 12-week cut, right? It's the cut that's revealing the work that was done in the off season that you see this drastic change. That's not recomp happening in 12 weeks. They built for a year, for 6 months to a year or more. And now they're going through a cut and it looks drastic, but it's only because they're losing all the body fat that was sitting on top of that muscle they were building. And now it looks dramatic. So we've got to get out of this mindset of like everything's going to happen in the next 12 weeks. If you have a lot of body fat to lose and you've already built a foundation of muscle, then you can cut and it will happen, quote unquote, that quickly, or it'll look drastic like that. Yeah, your son-in-law does the challenges, Deb. Yep. And I have my own coming up. 6-week shred. I did that 3 years ago as a live group program. I'm bringing it back this year, but I'm thinking so critically about what I put into it because I don't want to send people in the wrong direction. So essentially all that really is it's an intense cut. You know, so when I do it, it's going to be application only, and there's going to be prerequisites. It's not for everyone. You have to be coming from a good place. You have to be metabolically in a good place. You can't have been in a long deficit going into it. And these are the kinds of things that I talk about only doing every so often, you know, once a year or so, just to get that body fat off quickly. And then we need to go and focus on the metabolism again and building. So, okay. All right. So how to achieve body recomp. Let's get into the hows here. And why I say this is really this should be a lifelong process and not something we're looking at doing overnight. Because the steps to body recomp are things that you should embrace shifting and creating a part of your lifestyle for the rest of your life. And this is how we as women in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s will only ever improve with age, and we don't have to worry about degeneration as we get older. So first and foremost, number one, we have to train for muscle building. So we have to send the proper signal to the body that tells our body we want to build muscle. So this is where I say you can be training incorrectly for body recomp, because if you're training with a thought of working out or exercise to burn calories, that is not the kind of training that is going to create body changes, body recomposition. That kind of training is purely for fat loss. And ultimately, training is not for the purpose of fat loss. So when we're chasing that calorie burn, we're thinking about it incorrectly. Any type of training, even if you're doing cardio for the burn, for the fat loss, we don't want to be doing cardio for the fat loss. We want to be doing cardio for our cardiovascular health, for our cardio capacity, for our ability to move. Because training in general, especially strength training, but all training, it's to create these shifts and these changes in our body that allows us to do things we couldn't do before, to improve our fitness overall. And it shouldn't be just a means of losing body fat. But the short answer here, the takeaway here is cut down on the cardio or cut out the cardio and focus primarily on strength training. Muscle building training is resistance training. So it is the type of training that is creating resistance. This can be with your own body weight. This can be with resistance bands. This can be with weights in the gym. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it, and they are all fantastic. So if all you have access to is your own body, if all you have access to is some bands or a ball, like the yoga ball, the large ball, you can do a lot with that. Work with what you got, with where you are. And another little blessing for my ladies with a little bit blessed with more body fat, is that you are carrying around more weight on your body than my leaner ladies. So my leaner ladies are going to have to lift weights and lift heavier weights to be able to get the same kind of resistance that my ladies with a little more body fat can do with their own body weight. So if you're in that camp I talked about before that is like, oh, I feel like I'm too big and I need to lose some weight before I can really get into strength training, just doing things like body weight squats, body weight lunges, anything with your own body weight is going to do more for you now than it will 20 pounds from now. So I encourage you to move your body in any way, shape, or form, because just moving your weight around on a day-to-day basis is weight training. So there's a little reframe for you there. Okay, but the basics of muscle building type of training is that it has to be progressive. I've talked about progressive overload on other classes. I have a training Q&A masterclass that was all about, not all about, but a large portion of it, we talked about all the different ways you can accomplish progressive overload. Not just lifting more weights, but things like adding more reps or slowing down your movement so you have more time under tension with the resistance. We talked about, oh my gosh, there were like 10 or 12 different ways that you could do it. So definitely watch that to get into the weeds on that. But the basics are that it has to be progressive. So you need to be challenged and trying to do more each time. You're not always going to be able to do more each time. You're going to have days where your energy is lower, you didn't sleep as well, your cycle, there's going to be times in your cycle where your energy is lower. The more important thing is that you're consistently training, you're not skipping and only doing it when you feel like it. So you pick a schedule that's realistic for you and you do that schedule consistently. Maybe it's 2 days a week. Maybe it's 3 days a week. Maybe it's 4 or 5 days a week, but you find something that's feasible and sustainable for you. And the best thing for you is going to be more than you're doing now. So if you haven't been doing anything, even 1 day a week is a step in the right direction. If all you were doing was 2 days before, 3 days would be a step in the right direction. You don't always have to add days. If you're already doing 5 days a week, you don't need to be doing 6 days a week. Sometimes, and for my real fitness fanatics out there, sometimes less is going to be more. I've got ladies that I had on a 6-day plan, and I'm reading into their biofeedback and what's going on in their lives, because we have to look at everything holistically. And I moved them to a 4-day-a-week plan. And then we make a 5th day cardio or something lower impact. So you don't need to be doing 5 or 6 days of strength training to get the results. You could do 3 really solid days and you can get better results than some people who are doing 6 days. Because remember, to be able to build muscle, we have to be able to recover. The repair, which is building the actual muscle because we're breaking it down and we're creating those micro tears during our training. The repair that happens on the recovery in between the training is what's building it. So I love a 1 day on, 1 day off plan. So maybe you're doing 3 or 4 days a week, but every other day you're taking a rest day. Or maybe you're doing an upper body day and then a lower body day and you're taking a rest. And then you're doing another upper body day and another lower body day. You could do that. But don't always think more is better. Less can definitely be more. CJ, okay, asks, thoughts on CrossFit for training? I was consistent with it for years, left during the world being upside down, but might go back now. I haven't been consistent with anything else since. Alone in my garage. Okay, so, oh boy. I don't know if Bronson heard that, but if he's in between his calls, he'll probably want to jump in on the CrossFit question. He's a huge proponent of CrossFit. Somebody asked about CrossFit. He can barely walk right now because he's doing
my quads.
Actually, that would be a great thing to chat about. Oh no. Now it's washing out the whole area.
Right. Yeah. What about putting it in?
No, it's better. It's better like this. See? Say hi.
What's up?
Okay, we're talking about body recomp.
Okay.
I'm talking about training for muscle building.
Okay.
And CJ asks thoughts on CrossFit for training. She was consistent for years, then left during the pandemic, hasn't been consistent with anything else. She said, can you walk faster if it's about CrossFit?
Funny.
You've actually recently switched from CrossFit to...
Well, because I went back to it, but now because of other reasons, I'm not going to that gym anymore. But what's the question specifically?
Okay, let me weigh in on this first. Her
Okay.
first question is thoughts on CrossFit for training. She was consistent for years, but she hasn't been consistent with anything else since she left CrossFit.
Okay.
So in that case, I would say if you will be more consistent with CrossFit than you are with trying to strength train on your own, then I think CrossFit is a great idea. If you can be consistent with strength training, purely focused on muscle building, bodybuilding style, then I would say you can probably get better aesthetic results focusing on a bodybuilding style. But the question is, what are you going to be consistent with? Because whatever you're going to be consistent with is going to be better for you than what you're not going to be consistent with. Thoughts?
Yes, consistency is always the first thing to look at. CrossFit can be great for building muscle. The issue is that CrossFit is a much broader spectrum of things that you're going to work on. So you're going to build muscle, but you're also going to get a lot of other things. And the muscle that you build is going to be more about making your body better at doing things, less about making your body look a specific way. So neither of them is bad. If you want to look fit, then either of them will work, right? If you do CrossFit, you're going to get in shape and you're going to look fit, like you're going to look super fit, right? But if you're looking for capped delts or a big round booty or defined large calves or something specific about your body, then you need to target those specific things. So for general increases of lean mass, for general functional strength, CrossFit is fantastic. For general strength, bodybuilding is fantastic. It can be, depending on how much you specialize, a little less functional because it's more designed for aesthetics. But for aesthetics, it's much more specific and can work just as well for that too. So it's really just a matter of, like she said, which of the different options are there that you're going to be more consistent at doing all the time.
Very well said.
Is that good?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go do CrossFit.
And backing up to the conversation about the populations that Recomp is going to be easier for, if you fall into one of those it would be easier for you populations, meaning you have a little excess body fat, then CrossFit is probably going to make it happen a little faster, because typically in CrossFit workouts, you're going to get a combo of cardiovascular and strength training. Whereas in bodybuilding, you're going to have to separate your cardio from your strength training, and you may need more of a caloric deficit, which we're going to get into the diet side of things in a moment. But you can definitely accomplish that, losing body fat and building muscle at the same time, very well with functional training like CrossFit. But if you're already lean, it may not be as beneficial in terms of, like, you're not going to see the recomp as fast. Yeah, she says her glutes responded way better to at-home training. Yes, any body part. And this is the other piece about the training for muscle building. In general, we want to train for muscle building in general. And like he said, CrossFit and many other types of training can be great for muscle building overall. But bodybuilding style training is specific. So you can literally look at exactly what you want to change on your body and chisel it according to what you want to do. What parts of your body do you want to bring up, meaning build larger, and what parts of your body do you want to minimize, right? For most of us ladies, we want bigger glutes, we want bigger shoulders, we don't say we want a larger, wider back, but we say we want a smaller waist. And what creates that illusion of a small waist is a larger back and larger glutes. So this is why in the bikini world, we focus on shoulders, widening the back in the right way to create that tapered waist, and then building the glutes. Those are like the big areas for bikini to create that hourglass shape. And we can do that with bodybuilding style training. When I say bodybuilding style training, what I mean is purely weight training, purely resistance training with the proper amounts of cardio sprinkled in strategically so that it's not taking away from the strength muscle building. And there is a difference in purely strength building type of weight training and muscle building weight training. You have a crossover. You're going to build some strength while you build muscle size, and you're going to build muscle size while you build strength. But typically, lower rep ranges, 1 to 5, is where our power lifters and our weight lifters are going to live. The people who are trying to build strength for weightlifting type competitions and powerlifting competitions. Whereas for bodybuilding, we like to live in a good 6 to 12, maybe 15 rep range. And it can go all the way up to 20. But 6 to 12 is kind of the magic range for what we call hypertrophy, which is really that muscle size building range. So if you see, you probably see a lot of free workout templates out there that say 3 sets of 10 of whatever the exercise is. Do this 3 times, 3 reps, repetition, or 10 repetitions 3 times, 3 sets. You're going to see 3 times 10 all over the place. The other way that women are training wrong is that they're training to the plan. I'm using Bronson's words because he just posted something yesterday that was really powerful on his Instagram, and it was about, are you training hard enough? So the other problem I see is that women are not training with enough intensity. They're either not pushing themselves to lift heavier or to use more resistance, going up to a heavier resistance band, creating more resistance. You can create more resistance with your body, with body weight stuff, by changing your angle, your leverage, or lifting heavier weights. A lot of the time, they're looking at the plan on the page and saying 3 times 10. Okay, lift the dumbbells 10 times, do that 3 times, and I'm done. And they never go to heavier weights. They never try to do any more reps. So they're not progressing. That's what I mean when I say progression. So progressive overload, doing something more than last time, trying to progress in one of those things. So that's kind of the shortened version. Go into the training masterclasses and Q&As to get more of the details on training. And sometime this year, I'm going to have some training plans you can buy off the shelf for particular body parts that you really want to work to improve. In the meantime, I do offer custom training for my private clients. And something like that is coming from my membership as well. Okay, that's the training side of things. Got to train for muscle building. Next, the food, the diet side of things, the nutrition side of things. And I'm not talking about hydration on this class, but hydration is always important. So one of those little optimization things. So cheers. Cheers to staying hydrated. Okay, diet-wise. And if you have any other questions you want to know specifically about the training for body recomp, please feel free to share. Okay.
You done?
Nope. I'm just finished training. We got diet, we got recovery, we got tracking, and then I'm answering specific questions. So, all right, are you hopping on your next call?
Good, a minute, yeah.
We are just on all the calls tonight. All right, so let's talk about diet for recomp. The key here is Figuring out your maintenance is number one. So if you have been in a deficit to lose body fat for a long period of time, or short period of time, or whatever, finding your maintenance is going to be key for body recomp. For body recomp, you want to be eating at maintenance or a very slight being the operative word, a very slight deficit or a very slight surplus. You don't want to be in a major surplus trying to bulk, and you don't want to be in a major deficit trying to lose fat faster. This was that segment of the population I talked about earlier that's going to have a hard time recomping. If you're like, I want to get there faster, so you cut your calories even more because you're like, I want to get that fat loss happening, that is going to negatively impact your recomp. So find your maintenance, meaning you can eat this much food without putting on body fat quickly and without dropping body fat quickly. So you're not seeing the scale go up and up and up and up. You're not seeing the scale go down, 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 down. The scale is the easiest thing to look at. Of course, we're going to get into tracking in a moment, specifically for recomp, and how you know you're getting that recomp, because if you're doing it right, you're not going to see major spikes and drops on the scale. You're not going to see any major changes week to week. So that's a mindset shift you have to have when you're focused on recomp. You're actually going to be looking for less changes on a micro level week to week. And then months go by and you'll actually start to really see those changes. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks or more, you'll start seeing it in your body. But you got to let go of that wanting to see something happening with your inches, with your weight, on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. So very slight surplus or very slight deficit or right at maintenance. You can stay at maintenance and get body recomp without having to be in a surplus or deficit at all. And that's essentially where I'm sitting for my off season. The goal is for me to be able to eat at this high level of food, train hard, recover well, and slowly start to see that shift in my body recomposition and my body composition, so that when I do my next cut, it now looks like, whoa, what did she do? And so when you're doing this right, you're building the muscle, you're losing some body fat along that way, but it's at such a slow rate that you're not really seeing any big changes on the scale, but you're starting to see it over time. You'll start to see it in your body composition statistics, your metrics. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. And then you're definitely going to see it in your photos and in the way that clothes fit. And so the biggest thing to be tracking, let's jump down to tracking and then we'll talk about recovery and optimization. So the slight surplus, actually I should finish talking about nutrition first. The slight surplus or slight deficit or maintenance is also going to require proper macronutrient. I hate to say ratios because I don't use ratios to determine macros, but that's the best word in this case, because you want to make sure that you're eating in the right ratio, so to speak. You have your macros in the right place to really be able to promote body recomp. So let me write that down so I don't forget macros. All right, so finding your maintenance, like I said, just means the amount of food that is not creating any changes in one direction or the other on the scale on a micro level. What does that mean? Number one, for muscle building, you have to be eating adequate protein. If you're not giving your body the bricks to build the house, it can't build the house. You have to have the materials. So the protein is what's giving you the materials. That's the building blocks of your body. So you've got to be eating enough protein. I've got masterclasses on protein. I just recently did one. If you're unsure of where to set your protein, drop a question in the group. Be happy to answer it there. Ladies in the group will jump in. We can help you out. But my rule of thumb is always, and really I love 1-to-1 per pound of body weight. Unless you are very overweight and you've got a lot to lose, then you can think about it as your ideal body weight. Or if you're you could also look at it as your lean body mass if you're already pretty familiar with where your body fat percentage is. But I would say at the lowest, the very lowest, your protein should at least be 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. And ideally, it would be a little higher than that. And the leaner you are, the higher your protein is going to need to be for you to get that result you're looking for in muscle building. So if you're super lean, you're really, you're already at your ideal weight, and you're already lean in terms of body fat percentage, like I was saying, that under 25%, you're probably going to need to eat at your body weight in protein or more. I eat more than 1 gram per pound of body weight. And just for numbers sake, to give you some reference, I weigh 123 right now at my highest, and I eat 150 grams of protein a day. And this is lower than what I used to eat with protein. So it's probably a little more than 1.2 or 1.25, maybe 1.3 times my body weight. And I sit at 23% body fat. So even if you're, 20 pounds away from your ideal body weight, you could probably stand to eat your body weight in protein in grams, and that would be beautiful for you. So somewhere in there, get that protein up. And then it's about managing your fuel, which is coming from your carbs and your fats. And so finding that threshold of how much fat can I eat and where do my carbs need to stay. Most of us, we set our carbs, we leave our carbs there. And then how much fat can I eat before I start putting on body fat? When you find that level, that's your maintenance. And a beautiful place to be is 1-to-1. Eating, for me, for example, right now, I'm pretty close. Yeah, I'm pretty close to that. Maybe a little bit more fuel. So the leaner you get, that's the other thing, your fuel threshold, the more muscle you put on your body and the leaner you get. So as you recomp, you're going to be able to eat more fat, more fuel without putting on body fat. So where I'm at right now, right? I just said 150 grams of protein. A great place to be with that would be 25 grams of carbs and 125 grams of fat. So now you're at 150 grams of fuel and 150 grams of protein. 1-to-1 by grams, not by ratios, not 50% ratios, because fat has more calories per gram. So your fat is still going to be probably 60%, 65% of your calories. Protein is usually, for me, anywhere from 35 to 50% of my calories, depending on how low my carbs are. And then carbs are usually somewhere like 5 or 10%. But I don't ever base it on the ratios. I set the macros by grams. So eat enough protein, find your threshold of fuel. 1-to-1 is a great estimate to start with. And then see what's happening on the scale. If you're quickly increasing, you're eating too much fat. You got to bring it down and find that maintenance. If you can't keep the weight on, you're eating too low. Okay, so that's finding your macros. Enough protein, fuel threshold. And then hang out there. It's more of a mind F than anything else, this recomp thing. It's basically maintenance. But I can promise you that if you're eating at maintenance, a lot of the time, ladies think, well, I'm just standing still. And they don't like that because they want to see movement in one direction or another. But if you're training hard and recovering well, I promise you, you're building muscle. It just may not feel fast enough for you. And on that note, and we're going to get back to recovery, but on that note, I want to touch on the how long does it take. So I talked about that this really should be your goal really for the rest of your life. But to see, let's say, how long does it take to quote unquote see results? Because that's really what the rest of that question is. So it's different for everyone, but here's my rule of thumb on realistic rates of fat loss and muscle gain. And I did a masterclass on expectations and goal setting. I will, after this masterclass, I'll bump it so it'll go, or I'll repost it or comment under it so it'll go up to the top of the group. And maybe I'll pin it to the top of the group. But in there, and under there in the guide, I shared a Precision Nutrition article that is a great article about realistic rates of fat loss and muscle gain. That's a great article to read. It has a little chart in there that'll actually give you what year of training, how trained are you, first year of training, second year of training, third year of training, and what you can expect in terms of muscle building. But I typically like to put these rules of thumb out there. Fat loss, a healthy rate of loss is about 1% of your body weight per week. So if you're a 150-pound woman, that's 1.5 pounds per week. If you're expecting 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds of fat loss in a week, your expectations are not realistic. You got to reset them. Some weeks you're not going to lose any. Other weeks you may lose 2 pounds or more. But it would average out to about 1.5 pounds if you're 150 pounds. So 1% is the average you want to look at week by week. So in terms of fat loss, if we're talking 150-pound woman, that could look like 6 pounds per month of fat loss. So that's weight off the scale. See, the scale does matter. Stop believing that the scale is lying. It's not lying. It just may not be telling you what you want to see. And that means that there's something you need to look at and there's something you need to change. And of course we don't like that, because it's showing us we're not doing something we said we were going to do, or we're doing something we shouldn't be doing. So start believing the scale, because it's true. If you lose body fat, you will lose weight on the scale. Can't lose body fat and not lose weight on the scale. And the reason I'm saying that is because even if you're gaining muscle, and I see this excuse a lot out there, I'm bulking, I'm building muscle, that's why I'm not seeing any changes on the scale. You are not building muscle faster than you're losing body fat. So if you want to lose body fat, if your goal is to lose body fat, and you think because you're training, that's why you're not seeing any change on the scale, you're not in a deficit for fat loss. I'm sorry to tell you, but fat loss happens much faster than muscle gain. So to put it in perspective, a good rate of muscle gain is going to be more like 1 pound per month versus 1 or more pounds of loss per week with body fat. So a 150-pound woman can lose 6 pounds of fat in a month, but she'll be lucky to gain 1 to 2 pounds of muscle in a month. If she's completely untrained, 2 pounds of muscle in a month is great. If she's a trained individual, it's going to be more like 1 pound or less. So when you think about it, if you're truly looking for fat loss more than muscle gain, and you want recomp, you can do that. You can achieve fat loss and muscle gain at the same time. And you can realistically, for a 150-pound woman, you can realistically expect a good 4 to 5 pounds on the scale per month if you're doing everything correctly, if you're optimized. And if you're training hard, you're building muscle and burning body fat at the same time, and you're seeing a loss on the scale. So I think I need to say it in every masterclass, because we love to play games with ourselves and make ourselves feel good when we're not making progress. To say, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. I can promise you, after almost a decade of doing this, every single time I didn't get results, it's because I wasn't dialed in. Every single time I dialed in, I got results. So if you're not getting results, there's something that needs to change. Okay, let's talk about what needs to change then. You got to be tracking more than weight. Take the photos. Take the photos, take the photos, take the photos. Every single week, whether you feel like it or not. Whether you're bloated or not. whether you ate off plan or not. Pick a day of the week and don't give yourself an out. If Saturday is your photo day, you take your progress photos every single Saturday because it's just what you do. And if you binge your face off on Friday night, get up and take those pictures on Saturday because that's what you're committed to doing. And I guarantee you, if you take photos every single week for a year, you will get better results than you've ever seen in your life because there is something about that accountability and looking at yourself in your progress photos, in your progress photo outfit, because we're all going to pick an outfit to wear for our progress photos. And it is not going to be fully covered. I do it in my bikini. If you follow me on Instagram, you see. I just posted something the other day about take the photos whether you feel like it or not. Because I tell you, I tell you this from experience, okay? I have been there with every single excuse. I'm on my period. Oh, I'm carrying water weight. Oh, I overate last night, so I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. And then next week, ooh, I skipped a week. And now it's been 3 weeks since I've checked in. And guess what happens when I don't check in for 3 weeks? Whether you're checking in with yourself or checking in with a coach. Something's sliding. When you're not checking in, something's sliding. Just like when you don't track your nutrition, you're not tracking your food, what happens? Things just creep in. They just sneak onto your plate and into your body, right? You didn't do it. It's just the thought of, oh, I'm not tracking it, so it doesn't matter. So take the photos because the photos are going to be the #1 way that you see body recomp. You're not going to see it, like I said, on the scale. The other thing to track, and we talked about tracking in depth last week, so check out that tracking masterclass. But the other thing to track is your body composition. Whether you're going to get a DEXA or you have an in-body at-home system or you have a cheap digital scale that tells you, I don't care about the accuracy of the scale. I care that you're checking. Track more than your weight. Track every single metric that you possibly can. That's how you're going to see the changes. And in Recomp, maintenance phase, whatever you want to call it. And I did a maintenance phase masterclass too, also about this kind of mindset stuff. So check that out if you need some inspiration and motivation for your maintenance/recomp phase. It's really easy to get discouraged because it's not as exciting as a fat loss phase. Because with a fat loss phase, you're seeing the changes so frequently, or you should be if you're doing it right. But you're not going to see that with Recomp. So you've got to find all the metrics you can to help you find those changes and see those changes, including, thanks for hopping on, Isabel. It was great having you. Including performance goals in the gym. If you're gaining strength, there's a good chance you're gaining muscle. So that is a great metric to track. That has nothing to do with your actual body composition in the moment. But if you're gaining strength, that usually means you're gaining muscle. So that's a good sign. But check out the tracking masterclass for more on tracking. And let's talk about optimization and recovery, because the other huge piece of this, and there's a lot of my ladies who are maybe not even recomping, but in a fat loss phase, and they're not getting the results. And they're dialed in, and I'm like, what the heck? Okay, let's look at this. Let's look at that. What's going on in your life, you know? And they're telling me about their stress level, and they're telling me about their lack of sleep. Big red flag. If you're not sleeping well, if you're not resting, if your body's not getting the recovery that it needs, I don't care what you throw at it, your body's not going to lose body fat, and your body's not going to build muscle. So health first and optimize, optimize, optimize. What does that mean? It means, ladies. Oh, my ladies, Mother's Day was yesterday. The mother syndrome. Whether you're a mother of human beings or not, whether you're a fur baby mother or not, whether you're a stepmother or not, we have mother syndrome. Women in general have mother syndrome. Everybody else comes before me. I am last. I got to do this. I got to do that. Whether you're the mother of your career or human beings, or the mother of your husband, or the mother of your pets, or the mother of your community, or the mother of your friends, you're mothering somebody and you're putting other people before you. And I will say it till I'm blue in the face, and I don't care how difficult or impossible it seems for you. You have got to put your your oxygen mask on first. You have to. Something has to click in your head, and you have to say, that's it. Enough is enough. I deserve to come first. I used to be in a all-consuming career. I busted my ass to become a pro bodybuilder and a coach so that I could do what I'm doing now. That was not an easy transition. But what came before me leaving that career was a decision to put myself first. After working 10, 12-hour days, having no social life, having no love life for many, many years, it was a decision of I have to take care of myself. They are not going to get what's first. I get what's first in my day. And then I give my energy to them. And once that switch flipped, that's what set the tone for me to be able to create the life I have now. We sometimes get so stuck in what is, and we can't see a way out. We can't think that things could ever be different. I promise you, you are the thing that's going to make things different. You cannot wait for the things around you to change. You have to change the things around you. And that starts with you changing you. And it's almost miraculous the way it happens when you start to tune inward and you start to take care of you. Yes, Vicky, yes. Take back that power. It's time to take care of you 100%. So that's what I mean by optimization. There's optimization with our diet, right? Making sure that it's not just about the macros, but it's about, am I putting healthy, nutritious food in my body? I just spoke with a client about this today. My rule of thumb for myself is I get to fit whatever I want into my macros to make this a sustainable lifestyle for me. Most of the time, that includes some sort of chocolate almost every single day. But my rule of thumb is I have to eat real food. So I have at any given time, sometimes I do 2 meals a day, sometimes I do 3 meals a day. But whether I'm doing 2 or 3 meals a day, the minimum is 2 real food meals a day. The majority of my calories and my macros have to be in real food form, nutrient dense whole foods. And then I get to fit in other things. But those other things do not get to replace my meals because I need to put nutrition in my body where my body is breaking down the food and getting the nutrients, because the nutrients are what is creating the health, the level of health in my body. So I'm not living, sorry ladies, on bacon and butter. I'm not doing BBBE, and I don't encourage that. Nothing wrong with beef and eggs. Bacon and butter are condiments. They're side dishes. They should not be your main meals. Ribs and sausages, breakfast meats, those traditional breakfast meats, should not be the bulk of your meals. Pepperoni, sausage, processed meats should not be the bulk. Clean, fresh, real, whole foods. Meats, veggies if you do veggies, low carb veggies, fruits if you do fruits. And then the little additional things like the coffee and the chocolate and the whatever else you can fit in there. it can fit and it can make it sustainable and fun. And the, baking, keto, whatever, those things can fit. Okay. Let's get into your questions now. So, and then, okay, wait. That was the nutrition optimization. Other things of optimization, like I said, sleep, rest, taking rest days, checking in with your body and not overtraining. Like I said, it's not more is not more. Listening to your body and not overtraining when you've just trained and you're too sore, and getting some movement instead, taking a walk, doing some restorative yoga or stretching or something other than training again if you're too sore to do it again. And then checking that and saying, okay, next time I train, I'm not going to go so hard in my session because I wasn't able to recover. And I talk a lot about tracking your biofeedback. So, and I offered my journal in the group, my level up journal. So you can take my prompts and you can do your own check-ins with yourself. And that includes your biofeedback markers. You want to be tracking your sleep, your stress, your mood, your energy, your libido, your bowel habits, and more. I think I gave you 10 of those. So check out that journal. I dropped it in the group where you can sign up for that. I'll bump that post as well. Okay. So how to achieve recomp? Train for muscle building, number one. Eat at maintenance or a slight deficit or slight surplus, number two. Number three, optimize recovery. And number four, you've got to be tracking more than the weight. Track the things that you can see the changes happening because they're happening slower. Now let's get into your questions. And I'm going to tell you about a resource that is like the OG of body recomposition is Mr. Lyle McDonald. He wrote a book called Body Recomposition. I think it was called Body Recomposition. You can actually get the digital version online. That is a great place to go to get like into the weeds on body recomposition. But that guy is the OG. He even had a Facebook group. I don't know if he still has a Facebook group. So it was something body recomposition. But that's where you can geek out on more if you want to check that out. I can drop that in the group as well. But let's get into these questions. I already answered the question about how long does it take. That's always the first question. All right. Question, is there such thing as too little body fat? What is the goal? So I talked a little bit about levels of body fat percentage. That 25%, like I said, is always kind of that first goal. If you're above that, that's a great place to hang out. 23 to 24% is lean, healthy, really great place to be. Nothing wrong with 25, 26%. If you find that you get there and you're happy in life, you're happy with your body, then great. So ultimately, you are the determining factor on what level of body fat feels good for you. Everybody's body is a little bit different. And as you build more muscle, you'll find you're more comfortable at different levels of body fat percentage than you used to be. I used to maintain, and in my building seasons, I would sit at 24, 25, 26% body fat. And now I sit at 23% in my off seasons. And that's just because I've built more muscle. So it's easier for me to hang out here without needing to put on more body fat to be healthy. 20%, anything under 20% is incredibly lean. It's very athletically lean. And it is going to be more difficult to maintain and not as optimal to maintain year round. So I don't encourage under 20% for women. 20, 21, 22 is still pretty lean. That 22, 23, 24 is really comfortable, in my opinion. And along that same line is too little body fat. Yeah, I see women who are trying to maintain at 14% and petrified of putting any more on, or even less than that. And I should also say, every time I talk about body composition, the measures are very different with different testing measures. A DEXA body composition scan is going to be very different than an in-body. or a bod pod. So they're all different methods. I actually have a video on YouTube about body composition methods. I had my DEXA tech talk all about all the different types. So I'm saying these numbers, but you could be like, well, I'm not anywhere near those numbers. I'm way low or I'm way high. And it's going to depend on what type you're using. The percentages I've talked about are typically in body. Bioelectrical impedance. That's what most digital scales are working off of. DEXA is going to be higher than that because it includes all of your essential fat that you'll never lose from your body, that you should not ever lose from your body. So a lot of time people freak out when they get a DEXA because they're like, oh my God, it's so much higher than I thought. It's just because the other measures have already taken out all of the fat that you have to have on your body when they tell you what you are. But yeah, too lean is not going to be good for overall health. You'll start to see your health going in the opposite direction. You may lose your period if you're cycling. If you're not cycling, you could get other hormonal imbalances. Hormone imbalance is one of the number one things that women are going to experience when they get too low on body fat. Thyroid could be impacting with really low body fat. Mental health is absolutely going to be impacted. Think about all the things, all the benefits of keto, for example, that we get from eating more dietary fat. Same kind of thing with having more body fat, fatty acids, more available fatty acids on your body. Fatty acids are very important. They build hormones. You know, all of our sex hormones are steroid hormones. Steroid hormones come from cholesterol. So we need to have enough cholesterol in our body to produce those. So there's a lot of things that can happen with really low body fat. Body temperature, you can start to see mood disruption, hunger levels, and basically your leptin and your ghrelin are going to be off. So all of those hormones. Yeah, a lot of things can happen with too little body fat. So we don't want to just be chasing lower body fat all the time at any cost. I hope that helped answer that question. Let's see, we talked about how long it takes. Okay, and then two questions that are related, a little different but related. Tightening up loose skin. So this is unrelated to fat loss and muscle gain in that skin is skin. And we're not, unfortunately, we don't really get to choose what happens. But what I can say, this is another feather in the cap for my ladies who I'm saying, if you have a lot of body fat and you're afraid to strength train or you want to wait, don't wait. Because the women who started strength training earlier in their fat loss journey have less loose skin at the end of their fat loss journey. So the best thing you can do to improve that is to build as much muscle as possible. The more muscle you have under the skin, the more the skin has to stretch around the muscle. So you would be surprised at the skin elasticity and how that tightens up. I've got competitor clients who are shocked, like they're so scared about what it's going to look like on stage. And by the time they get that lean, skin's just like tightened up in that area. So building muscle is the best thing you can do in that regard. And then otherwise it's just taking care of your skin. There's not a lot of there's nothing, I don't think really anything that's really proven to work. But I do know some of my fellow competitors who've lost significant amounts of weight. One of them swears by is dry brushing. So it's a form of basically like moving the lymph. So it's really good for that lymph flow and removing toxins from the body. And it can help with sloughing off dead skin cells as well. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a dry brush. They have brushes made for this. So you can just look up dry brushing. And you brush it in the direction of the lymph toward the heart. And it can help with that lymphatic flow and dead skin. So that is what one of my ladies, one of my girlfriends swears by that has really helped her. But everything's kind of anecdotal. There's nothing scientifically proven. But just build that muscle. It's the best thing you can do. And then the other question is about symmetry. What do you do if you realize one part is more defined than another, like right bicep versus left bicep? Okay, great question. Everybody has this to some degree. Our bodies are not like perfectly symmetrical. So as you build, you may realize that your muscles on one side of your body, a particular muscle on one side of your body may be more developed than the other. For me, for example, my left glute is more developed than my right glute. What I discovered is the biggest driver of this are the things that we're not thinking about, like our posture. A lot of the time, and it could be also from being a righty or a lefty, you use that limb more than you use the other. So the muscle is more developed on one side than the other. For me, it was posing. I was always posing on that side when I was practicing posing. And I did that for so long that it developed that muscle more than the other side. Here's my tip on training to improve symmetry. Not necessarily trying to lift heavier on one side than the other or do more reps on one side than the other, but doing isolateral movements, unilateral movements, meaning single side exercises, right? So let's say instead of doing a conventional deadlift, you're doing a single leg deadlift. Instead of doing a leg press, you're doing a single leg press. Instead of doing bicep curls with both arms, you're doing unilateral bicep curls, one arm and then the other. When you do unilateral movements like that, start with the weaker side or start with the smaller side. So in Shayna's case, you said your right bicep is more defined than your left. So start with your left. When you're doing bicep curls, when you're doing bicep exercises and other arm exercises, do them unilaterally and start with your left side. Start with your smaller or your weaker side. And that's the same thing with any symmetry. That way, you're not pre-exhausting. And this is another thing we tend to do when if you're right-handed, for example, we tend to, whenever we're doing a unilateral exercise, we pick up that dominant side first. And then by the time we get to the non-dominant side, we've already pre-exhausted our body by doing 10, 12 reps on the dominant side. So start with your non-dominant side. And then when you're doing, same kind of thing happens when we're not doing unilateral exercises, the stronger dominant side naturally kind of takes more of the force. So when we're doing things with barbells, for example. So this is why unilateral training can be really, really powerful for fixing symmetry.
I'm not sure I understand.
I'm not asking you, Siri. Okay. Tori asked, when do we recomp versus fat loss? So fat loss is part of recomp. So if you're recomping, you are doing fat loss. And if you're in a fat loss phase, like you are right now, Tori, and you're strength training, like you are right now, you are recomping. Yay. So anybody, if you're in a fat loss phase, you know, if we're talking recomp versus fat loss, what do we really mean by that? All we mean by that is focusing or putting more emphasis on the fat loss necessarily than the recomp. So you're likely going to be in a greater deficit when you're focused primarily on fat loss than you would be for recomp. Recomp would be more a slighter deficit or in maintenance. So in that case, the way you're asking that question would be, you know, for you, for example, or for anybody who is focused more on fat loss and your strength training, don't worry, you're going to get some recomp in that process. That's always the goal. But let's say once you get to your ideal body composition or your ideal body fat percentage or your ideal weight, whatever you want to call it, then we can shift from a primarily our focus being on fat loss to our focus being on recomp. Tori says, I can't wait to eat less. Oh, be careful what you wish for. Be careful. Enjoy it while you can. Because it's coming. All right. Hopefully that answered the question for anybody else who might have been wondering that. CJ asked, any hints on what training will look like or will be like in Grace and Grind? Okay, so in the Grace and Grind membership, I'm debating what I want the training to look like. And you guys can tell me your thoughts. Because it will be an add-on to the basic membership. So you can basically upgrade or add on training. And my initial thought is to offer custom training. So just like I do with my private clients, you would sign up for the upgrade and then you would get a questionnaire. Well, this is a little bit different than what I do with my private clients, because with private clients, we're on phone calls, you know, I'm talking to them all the time. So I can get all this through that. But if it were custom training, which is where I'm leaning toward, you'd get a questionnaire. So I can get all the data that I need to set up to create your custom plan. And then I would write you a custom plan. And it would be a monthly membership, just like Grace and Grind, but it would be an add-on. So each month you would be paying that fee. And each month you would have your custom training plan. And I typically like to program for 6 to 8 weeks at a time. So you would get your first training plan and then you'd check in with me at the end of the month. So much like my private clients, but instead of checking in weekly, you would check in once and it would each month. And it would be here's the update of your biofeedback, what's happening in your training, anything I need to know. You can send me videos so I can see what you're doing. And then I will either tweak the current plan you're on for the next month or say, you know what, it's time for a new phase and just write you a whole new phase. So you could be getting new training every 4 weeks, or you could stay on the plan for 6 to 8 weeks and I would just give you some tweaks or some pointers or form checks, things of that nature. So it would still be kind of an ongoing thing. So it's kind of like getting just the training part of my coaching, but we would not be doing video calls and we wouldn't be doing weekly check-ins. You love it. Okay, great. That's where I'm leaning toward, because the way that I train, I haven't done a group training program in 3 years. And like I said, I'm thinking about it for this shred. And the more I think about group training, the more it's a mind F, because it's just so difficult, because everyone is so unique in terms of your lifestyle, your stress level, your recovery, all these things I've talked about, right? Your schedule, how many days a week you can do, what volume you can handle. And so I really like to do things on the individual basis. So yeah, glad to hear that you love that. That's what I'm thinking of making it. And it would be the same thing on the nutrition side. If I do a nutrition, if I know I'm going to do a nutrition add-on, and the nutrition add-on would be the macros piece. So same kind of thing. You would have a questionnaire to answer. I would set your macros. At the end of the month, you would check in. I would look at your results. And if we need to tweak something, then we would tweak the macros for the next 4 weeks. So same kind of idea. It's like a stepping stone into private coaching. But I know so many women out there are like, I just need help on the training, or I just need help on the nutrition, or yikes, I don't want to check in every week, or yikes, that's really going to hit me in the pockets and I just can't afford the financial commitment. So I'm trying to make these little stepping stones. She said, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Yeah, and then on the group calls, in the membership, we talk about the education piece, you're understanding why we're doing what we're doing. And that's really my bigger passion, is for you all to be able to do all this stuff on your own. Tori says she loves the custom training, makes working out so easy. Yes. Yeah, and the other piece of that too is in Grace and Grind, in just the general membership, you get access to my app, but you got to put in all your own workouts if you want to track them there. So if you do the add-on, then your training program would be in the calendar and it would be in the app, and you can just track it right in there. It does make that piece easy. Hey, Karen, it's so good to see your face, at least on the interwebs. So glad you're here. I hope you got some benefit from this class. All right, let's see. Were there any other questions that I missed? I think that was it. Oh, let me see. Let me make sure that no other questions popped into the group that I missed in the meantime. Okay. And if anybody has any more questions, feel free to pop it in the chat. Maybe we'll move this class to 6 o'clock Eastern consistently because we got some more faces on here today. So that's great. Oh, that was me. Hello. Okay, I think I covered all the questions. And if I missed any of them, I can always pop into the group. Let's see, timeline on rolling out nutrition and training. No pressure. I am debating because in a couple of weeks now, a couple of weeks, what day is today? The 15th. So yeah, the first 12 days, first 10 to 12 days of June, we will be on the high seas for the low carb cruise. So I'm just trying to figure out if I'm going to launch it before I leave or after we get back. It may be a little too tight to do it beforehand. So it'll probably be mid-June when I launch the add-ons. That is also when I'm looking at launching the Shred program. So it'll kind of be a couple of different options depending on what people are interested in. Like I said, the Shred itself, it's going to be a group program and it's going to be very intense. So it's not for everyone. But if that, so then there'll be a couple of options there for people who either want to dive into the Shred or just want that one-on-one additional help. Yeah, lots of things coming this summer. All right, let's see. Okay, I think I got everything. Let me make sure. Good, good. Okay, then we are wrapped up for Recomp for now. And if any burning questions come up, drop them in the group. You're always free to ask, and we'll get some more discussion going in there as usual. Go and crush it this week. Make it a great week. Work on those Recomp goals. Recomp for life. That's what we're doing here. All right, ladies.
Thank you.
Come with me. Bye to the kitty.
Thanks, Nat.
He's been playing hard.
Good night.
This was great. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for being here.